All right. Well, before you answer him back on that, Brad, I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. Welcome, everybody. We are just getting started here. It's Thursday, November 21st, and my name is Randy Shannon. I'm the host and moderator for tonight's 42 Action Law Call. We have one of my most favorite people on the planet Earth on the call tonight. His name is Brad. He's out in Arizona. And in our Republic days, we were on the Armed Services Committee together, and we had some really interesting calls, and they were really fun. It was one of my favorite things to do, was hop on those calls and listen in on those discussions and weigh in, sometimes heavily, and then talk about it later as well. So there was a couple of things that Brad told me that I was absolutely shocked that he had done, and I don't know if you remember what it was, and I'll just copy a text. You tell me if you want to discuss it on tonight's call.
Okay.
That had to do with, the currencies and things like that, and I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Okay.
That was a private conversation. But, Brad, if you would tell everybody a little bit of background about yourself, what you do, and, how you got interested in the currencies, and the things I'd like you to touch on tonight are the email security, and
Sure.
Also if you do want to tell us what you do know about the case of the couple guys and the judges in Arizona. And we have one of the only live interactive law calls in the country. We leave it open the entire time. If anybody has any background noise, please mute out. If you don't, I'm going to mute out for you. That way Brad doesn't get interrupted, and whenever he wants to open it up for questions, he'll do that whenever, you have something.
Yeah,
if you
I'll just ask.
In a law, go ahead and ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, go ahead, Brett. You got the floor.
A little bit about me. Let's see. I grew up in Chicago area originally. My parents actually are, at the time, and kind of still are today, are brainwashed into the left-right paradigm, but they're on the left side of it. Die-hard kind of Democrats, but I think they're waking up over the last year or so. All the things that are going on, they're kind of starting to open their eyes. I grew up in that environment and moved out to Arizona about 14 years ago. Been out here, and I think where I started researching a lot of stuff, and I don't know, just gradually I started waking up myself, kind of on my own. And I think one of the important things is there's a lot of theories and opinions out there that people have, but when it comes to the facts, it's a different story. And I like kind of, people have to say something like, for example, let's say chemtrails, which maybe is a general kind of conspiratorial or whatever you want to call it, theory that some people have. Well, I found some facts on it and know it's factual. But that's how I discover things. I don't go by just somebody saying something and believing it. I like to research it, look for some facts into it. And so the things I'm going to talk about tonight, and although there's a broad spectrum, I've done 2-hour presentations on just the email security alone. So, but we're going to talk about, Randy wanted me to talk about Bitcoin, talking about email security, and then talk about this case or what's going on up in northern Arizona, which right now, I'm not going to comment too much on it because I don't have permission to from the people involved, but there are some exciting things happening in Arizona, and hopefully I could share that with you in time. But probably my focal point will be on Bitcoin and talking about that and maybe answering people's questions on it, and then also talking about email security. Because I'll have to condense a lot of things, I will give some website resources, so have a pen and paper ready, and I'm going to give some websites and different references for you to look into because I won't be able to expand on them in the call. But first, Randy, thank you for having me on the call, and it's kind of neat to hear people are gathering and talking about law, and it's not a bunch of attorneys.
We're glad to have you. I know people are super interested in what you have to say.
Okay.
And now you've baited them with coming back later for the case up in northern Arizona too, which is a doozy.
Yeah. Maybe I'll bring them on or something. We'll see. I'll have to work on that later and see if they're open to that. I think Bitcoin has a lot of interesting. Since you guys are talking about law, I think one really interesting thing with Bitcoin that's intriguing Well, one, some people don't know what Bitcoin is, so let me talk about what it is. Bitcoin's basically a digital, decentralized currency. It was created, well, it's unknown who really created it. There's a guy that has a Japanese name, but I believe it was a group of developers that have a strong understanding of Austrian economics, and they created an open source code that is a currency. To decentralized, meaning that no central authority controls the code or the how it's functioning. It's actually decentralized, which is the opposite. And there's been several other currencies that have been out there that maybe were similar to this. E-gold, Liberty Dollar, and a lot of these have failed because they were centralized to one server or one location that could be shut down. Well, Bitcoin actually is the opposite. It's not anywhere, but it is everywhere. And it's connected via the internet. And right now there's some very exciting things in that world. But Bitcoin basically is a code that it's not backed by gold or silver, and some people are like, well, then it's a fiat. Well, it's kind of in a gray zone as far as all the descriptions of what is money. But I think where the value that people see in Bitcoin is its utility. It's what it can do. There is a limit to the amount of Bitcoin that can be created, which is 21 million Bitcoin can be created, no more, and obviously less because there's about close to 12 million created so far. But when it gets to 21, that's it. There's no more that's created. How is it created? People ask that. It's created by a collaboration of thousands of computers, even individuals like myself. I do mine Bitcoin myself. And there's some people that mine a lot, some people mine a little computer doing this and that. But everywhere around the world, thousands of people mine Bitcoin. And what they do is their computer is basically hashing or processing or decrypting or encrypting a code that does take labor to create, and through that labor, the result is one Bitcoin, which is a long hash or long gibberish kind of number that's called Bitcoin. And this Bitcoin, if I wanted to pay some company or manufacturer or individual in China or Europe right now, all I need to do is add his address, and I could send a payment of whatever I want, whether it's $2 million or 2 cents. I could send it to him within seconds. And that's something we haven't seen before. Typical banking system that we deal with all the time here now in the Federal Reserve System, that would take like several weeks with all the different bureaucracies and layers of law and jurisdictional issues. And I think this is really interesting because right now the banks do not have and won't have control or can take control of Bitcoin because of its decentralized nature and it being no central authority controlling it. This is something that is of its strength and is of its value and utility as well. So people see value in that. In 2009, Bitcoin the code was placed out there, and I got involved, or at least discovered it in about 2010, 2011. I think when I first bought some Bitcoin, it was maybe 10 cents a Bitcoin, and now I think the last time I checked, it's $750 per Bitcoin. And there's been a big increase in the value recently because, one, China, Argentina, and several countries in Europe are starting to use this in a heavy way. China is specifically using a lot because, one, here in the States, we have the companies, but over there, you have the manufacturers. And so one of the most difficult things was dealing with the currency transfers and things like that, and using Bitcoin to pay a company off in China it just changed the whole paradigm of everything when it came to transfer. So that's one thing that's happening there. Plus, just people in China are using it heavily. There's been already several exchanges created within the last 2 months, and there's just a big surge there of interest. So there's a lot of things happening right now in the de facto, whatever you want to call it, corporation, United States government. They had a Senate hearing just in the last 3 days on Bitcoin specifically, and surprisingly enough, they're actually like, well, it's a currency, we can't really do anything about it, and so that's also kind of opened people's eyes that, wow, wait, there is something here, and that's also added its interest in Bitcoin. To learn more about Bitcoin, there's one website that's for people that are new to it that I suggest, and it's called weusecoins.com. You go there's a lot of things that talk about mining in more detail than I had tonight. What is a Bitcoin, and kind of breaks it down. How do you get started using Bitcoin? And there's plenty of different resources out there, if starting from that site, that they have different links and things to explore, how merchants are using Bitcoin now, those type of things. There are other virtual currencies out there, in fact, many, but Bitcoin has been the one that's kind of gained a big interest and was really the first of the game, and has been the dominating currency in the virtual world for a while now. The interesting thing on the horizon is that Argentina has had very limited, their government's having issues with their currency there and economic issues, and there's a big conference happening in Argentina the next week or so, and there's going to be a resurgence in Argentina. And maybe for the first time, people there won't be limited by currency. They'll be able to use Bitcoin without any oversight by a government that can control it. And I think that's very important, because this is the first time a currency existing outside of maybe barter and trade that you can transfer or use and pay someone instantaneously all around the world, yet it's not controlled by any one government. And that's exciting. I think a lot of people in the past, let's say you've heard all these different people that they have offshore accounts. Well, I think that's obsolete at this point, in the sense that what's the most ultimate offshore account probably would be a Bitcoin account, Bitcoin wallet, because it's located nowhere, yet it's accessible everywhere. Because it doesn't have a jurisdiction. It's a virtual jurisdiction. It doesn't have it's not a one government that's controlling the currency in that jurisdiction. It's not. There's no. It's in a kind of ether jurisdiction, and I think that's interesting thought on that. Another site that I recommend, for using Bitcoin, you have to have a wallet, which is equivalent to a bank account that has a login, and you manage your transactions and monitor everything. And for beginners, I highly recommend Coinbase.com. They're kind of like, how Gmail is easy to use for people? Well, Coinbase is kind of that for the Bitcoin world. And actually with Coinbase, if you'd like, you actually can connect it to a bank account. And when you receive payments in Bitcoin, you can deposit it into your bank account, and it converts from Bitcoin to US dollars and deposits within a couple business days. So it's kind of interesting. And also you can buy Bitcoin that way too. So if you want to buy a couple of Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin, however you want, you can just, purchase it with your Coinbase account, and it withdraws from your bank account. So it's an easy way to acquire it. So people ask, well, hey, wait a minute, the Bitcoin is $750 right now. I can't afford one Bitcoin. Well, keep in mind that built in the code of Bitcoin, it goes out to 8 decimal points. So you can have 0.000000001 Bitcoin. And so that will, we'll see how things go. But right now there's such a rise. I actually foresee, and this is just my opinion, it's $700 now. I'd say it's going to hit 1,000 within a couple of weeks, and it's only going to get higher. People that understand currencies understand that a currency that's limited, and here Bitcoin being limited to 21 million, the value only can go up, and it's only inevitable. And so it really comes down to what is your faith in the code and in the function of the currency itself. And as you do more research on that, you might be appealed to Bitcoin. Anyway, I'll leave it really at that. There's a lot of exciting things that I like talking about when I talk about Bitcoin and its use and people, how they've used it. But maybe another call I can kind of go in those details. I don't want to take up the whole time talking about that because we have other things. But maybe you, Randy, you want me to like take questions on a topic like this now, or you want me to do it at the end?
Does anybody have an immediate question? If they do, go ahead and fire it.
Hey, this is Brad. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, yeah, I'm a big Bitcoin enthusiast, and I've owned Bitcoin in the past. But one of the things that I really like about it is its potential to use it anonymously. But how do you use it anonymously when it's tied to your own bank account?
Well, the anonymous, as far as being anonymous, it depends. With if you connect it to your bank account, you're giving a little bit of that privacy away. But also, a lot of people involved with Bitcoin do say that they have this privacy. I say yes and no, because let's say, for example, you have a Bitcoin wallet and you have a public address to that Bitcoin wallet, and you want me to send you a payment. Well, I could easily just grab your public address and look it up and see all the transactions and see how much money is in that wallet that you had received payment. So there is some privacy, there isn't. This depends on how you look at it. I think the way to maintain privacy, there's a couple of things that are moving right now. One, the gentleman that started and kind of got hampered down by the government on the 3D printing. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was starting an open source website on 3D printing so people can post their code on different objects, things for people, an open source website basically that shared different files to create 3D objects. Well, the focal point was that people were making firearms with 3D machines, and so that raised a big red flag to de facto entities. Anyway, that got hampered down on, and so now the new project he's working on is called Dark Wallet. And Dark Wallet, I don't know if they have I don't know what the website is, but if you search, get on Start page and search Dark Wallet, you'll find it, I'm sure. And Dark Wallet, how it's being used is that it actually will be like a subsystem to the Bitcoin world where somebody sends a payment, but it doesn't track back to your public address. It's kind of like filtered in the sense, so you don't know where the origin of it is, but yet you receive payment. And it's something that's coming on the horizon that will maintain some more privacy in the Bitcoin world. But there is privacy in a sense that, not everybody knows what your public address is, and so there's these big hash tag addresses receiving funds here and there. And so there's certain ways to maintain privacy. Another one is blockchain.info, or blockchain.info is a website. And you can create a wallet there, and one option they have is where you can actually send your payment to someone for a fee, and they will actually basically, which is a simple way of explaining it, but basically they go through, send the payment through several different wallets where you don't really know which wallet it came from, so it maintains privacy there. So there's some things on that. But any other questions?
Did that cover it for you, Brad?
Yeah, no, that's good. Like you said, this could be a 2-hour call in and of itself just on that.
Exactly,
topic.
I know. I'm trying to limit myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Any other
questions?
That's
fine. I just want to say thanks. That's good for me. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I have a quick question. If we have time, I'd like to just know if you have a web address where I can learn more about Bitcoin and Bitcoin creation?
Well, I always recommend to start off with is weuseBitcoins.com, or is it .org? .com, yeah. Weusedbitcoins.com is a good start. Bitcoin.org is also a good start.
Bitcoin, plural.com?
Bitcoin. Let me double check that while I'm here. Yeah, bitcoin.org. And there's a bunch of different, maybe a lot more technical, depending on how deep you want to go. There's more technical explanations of the currency and how it functions, and the decentralized nature of it, and what does open source mean. A lot of people, that's something new. And so that's something to understand too, and how impactful that is to how Bitcoin exists. But I would start with those because I'm sure you're going to find things because they have a lot of links that refer to other things, and that's a good way to lead into it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
This is Brad again. I would throw out one more website that has a lot of resources, not only on Bitcoin, but on privacy and broader economic conditions out there, but they're also very big on privacy and anonymity. It's called Success Council, and it is a fee-based site because they have lots and lots of content in there, but there's lots of videos on Bitcoin within that as well, so check out Success Council as well.
Is it .com, .org?
Yeah, it's .com. And that sounds like it's a push for multi-level. I don't mean it to, and it's not. It's not a multi-level marketing site. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is that sort of has that ring to it. I don't mean to come across that way. It's a really good resource site. So check that one out. SuccessCouncil.com.
Yeah, something similar to that. A good friend of mine that works with KeepYourAssets.net, which is kind of similar. Sounds like it would be similar too. That's another resource as well.
Yeah, I'm on that.
And things.
Yeah, I'm on that site as well. They're very similar.
Yeah,
you're right.
Very similar. Yeah, sounds like it. Any other questions?
Hey, Brad. This is David, Tennessee.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you doing? Good to hear you again.
Good. We're on a call again.
Yes. When I looked at that when you first made me aware of it, and I ran something called ARMORY. Is that still a part of the process, or are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to explain it to you because I'm not that up on, how all this stuff works, but that was supposed to be a way to mine the Bitcoins from what I understand by reading it, but it kept saying, you maybe shouldn't open this, so I just put it on the back.
Oh, okay. Well, really now, one of the things as far as the Bitcoin code and how it is that as there's more, as the progression of Bitcoin, right now it's at 12 million right now created, and as it gets towards 21, it's more difficult to create the Bitcoin. So there's a control on how much Bitcoin can be created, but also the difficulty of doing it. And so maybe a year ago, there were websites that were giving out Bitcoin for free, and you can actually mine Bitcoin on a simple computer. But now the difficulty is so high that you have to have specialized hardware that's designed to mine Bitcoin these days. And if you ever want to look into that, there's a few that I personally recommend would be KNC miners or miner. Do you search for that? KNC miners and ButterflyLabs.com. Those are two companies that sell Bitcoin mining hardware for people that want to mine Bitcoin. Keep in mind also that these miners not just mine Bitcoin, but due to the decentralized nature of how Bitcoin functions, these miners also function in the transactions and help the transactions happen in a decentralized way, similar to what BitTorrent is to file sharing, where a bunch of computers get together and they share files in a decentralized way. Bitcoin transactions are also completed by miners and helped by miners to transact. But anyway, any other questions?
No, that's good. Thank you, Brad.
Okay.
Again, it's good to hear you.
Okay. All right,
I'll
thanks.
say, Brad.
Take care. Yes.
Chris in Las Vegas, FYI, Max Kaiser, the Kaiser report on RT Times News today, is running a pretty strong set on Bitcoins with a couple of real movers and shakers in Bitcoin world. And they also talked about Litecoin, and they analogized it from gold to silver-like in a comparison of gold value versus silver value. So it's an up-and-coming, we'll call it a lower-level investment quality Bitcoin or like and kind unit, but I thought that was worth that for people who are interested, and like yourself, at least taking a listen. He's a kind of a crazy-looking guy, but he's sharp, he's sure anti-Wall Street and anti the global banking gangster units. So he lays it out on the line, and he has some very interesting guests.
Yep. You know something interesting about Max Kaiser that people don't really know is that and there's a name for it. I can't off the top of my head know what the name is, but the actual trading system that Wall Street uses to trade stocks was created by Max Kaiser. He was one of, I think maybe there's 3 guys. He was one of those that created that system. So if anybody understands how things like that work, Max Kaiser would know, and that's why he was very early on talking about Bitcoin and how this is a great hammer to the centralized bank, a reserve system, because this is the antidote to that. He's been talking about that for, 2 years now. And pretty much everything he said has come true. Only part that hasn't come true is that he says that Bitcoin's value will be at 10,000 maybe within the year or so. That's 10,000 US dollars. And so he thinks that's where it's going to be, and that there's going to be a lot of people getting involved. Anyway, thanks for the question. Any others?
I think you can keep going.
Okay. Let's see, the other topic. What was the other topic when we talk about? Email security.
Email security?
Yeah. Okay.
NSA, spying, how to avoid, I don't know. I can't wait to hear what you're going to tell us.
Okay, well, email, and again, this is like an hour presentation that I'm fitting into like 15 minutes here, so I'll touch on the big parts. Data that you send via the internet and stored somewhere else is only as secure as the company or person securing it. You send it, a lot of people have a Yahoo account, Gmail account, Hotmail account, all these different accounts out there. How do you know that nobody's looking at that information? And how secure is it really? Outside of that, you can log in. But if a subpoena was sent and that information needed to be provided to whoever it is, that would easily be done and completed. So I think one thing to understand that's not talked about, I think it's probably one of the most important things with email security that you need to think about is jurisdiction when it comes to a legal point of view. If the email server you're using, one, is it secured? And we'll talk about that in a sec. There's a lot of ways to maintain some extra layers of security. But what jurisdiction is that email service in? Is the service in the United States? And those laws apply to that server. Is it located in Switzerland? Then the jurisdiction of that server falls into the country that it's located. That's key to if you're not storing your own email and having your own email server in your house and keeping an eye on your own information. That's one important thing to think about. But also, the other part, just yesterday, Eric Schmidt, which he's a total globalist, but he happened to say this because he knows the truth. He said yesterday that encryption is going to eliminate censorship by government censorship. He talked about that in that talk yesterday. Encryption is a means of maintaining privacy, and with privacy, you have more wealth. A lot of people think wealth is just what you have commodity-wise, asset-wise. Privacy is wealth, too. We talked earlier about some of these websites. You got what successconsole.com and keepyourassets.com. They focus on this. Privacy is wealth. Email security, in the next couple of years, you're going to see some major changes and a focal point with encryption. Current ones that I'd recommend, because they actually encrypt the entire email account with your password, and there's some other security layers on there as well. One website I recommend to check out is countermail.com. That's a good one to check out.
I want to say that one again, Fred.
Counter, C-O-U-N-T-E-R,
okay.
mail, M-A-I-L.com.
Okay.
And that's one example of many out there, but there's many others, and I'll talk about that. But one of the key things is that encryption allows two parties to share a key with each other. And in order to read the email that we send to each other, let's say Randy and I send an email, and we both have the keys to share this email and open it, as if we have a lockbox that we're sharing, and we have a key for each of us, and only the two of us can open it. Email can work out the same way through the use of encryption. Now, encryption itself, there's some open source types of encryption, and there's some government created encryption. There's some NSA manipulated encryption. Because NSA, all the revelations that maybe Edward Snowden had disclosed, none of the information is a surprise, and most of the information was already out. If you go to NSA's website, especially the Utah Center-oriented website, they talk about how they're spying on us. They should talk about how they handle the information right on the website. I'm telling you everything they're doing. And it was way before Edward Snowden disclosed any information. And so how do you defend your own liberty and freedom and privacy when you're online? And one weapon for that, to protect that, is encryption. And well, mark my words, you'll see this use of encryption used more often in the future. It's very possible that the Internet itself can use an encrypted, and I'm skipping a lot here, but the Internet itself can use encryption everywhere. Every communication can be encrypted. But you will see a growth in this. A lot of happenings now with the revelations of what Edward Snowden had put out has woken up many countries and many people. Now they're creating sub-internets. Some of the sub-internets that we maybe have seen here is Tor, Tor.org. I'll double check my domain on that. Tor.org. No, it's not that. I'll get you the domain in a sec. But Tor is a network that maintains some anonymous features to it. Torproject.org. Torproject.org. Check that website out. This is a sub-internet that you actually can utilize now to maintain privacy. Is it 100%? No, but it's a lot more secure than the current internet we have now. I mean, it functions a lot differently, and it's kind of somewhat foreign getting started with it, but it's something interesting, gets you thinking when you look on their website and how it functions. Other sub-internets or alternative internets out there, obviously many companies have their own intranets, but the Department of Defense has an intranet that runs encrypted, fully encrypted, on the power grid. Power grid actually is a very good means of transport for data, because it's everywhere. And the power grid, and there's a lot of sources to it, and I just kind of at least lay it out to you to research a little bit more on it. But the power grid actually has been used. It is currently used for communication, as well as obviously transfer of power and other things. Anyway, there's a lot of things on the horizon. There's a lot of innovation. The Internet itself is helping people like us communicate, share information, realize that we're on the same page and not separated, bringing people together of like mind. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of bad things, obviously, the Internet. But the open source movement is really influencing and starting to give certain tools to liberty-minded, freedom-oriented, respectful people to defend themselves in the virtual kind of world. And the Internet is giving us access to the largest amount or library of information, both the good and bad, and every library has good and bad too, the physical one, at our fingertips, sitting in our living room. If you talk to somebody 60 years, 70 years ago, and told them that you sit in front of the screen and you could type in something and start looking into something, maybe the history of Air Force bases over the last 40 years. I mean, that's such a niche, very specific topic, and you can find all this information on it within minutes. That's something that was unimaginable. And so it's a very interesting time that we're in with this, and although there's a lot of bad things happening, there's a lot of good things happening. I look at both, and I'm excited about some of the things. In the bigger picture, since I've woken up, I've now seen the grand awakening, I guess I call it now, that's happening globally. People are awakening that there is this tyranny that's around them, and the sleeping giant is waking up in a big way. And you're going to see more. We're going to see more of that, and I'm excited about it. Obviously, the powers that be are not going to like this, and they tend to react as a cat in a corner. Who knows what they're going to do, but it's inevitable. Now the sleeping giant is waking up, and once you wake it up, you can't put it back to sleep. And so it's exciting times. And look at here, you guys are gathering, talking about law on a phone call. How cool is that? Was that happening 10 years ago? Maybe. But the aspect of having a conference call and maybe you could easily put, whether it's 10 people or 1,000 people on a conference call and have a conversation or presentation. That wasn't as easily done 10 years ago. Now it's as easy as just signing up for an account. We have TalkShoe, we got all these Ustream, we have all these tools to share information. It's great, and I think it's really helping people wake up. But I think as far as security, we need to educate ourselves that what information we do put out there is only as secure as the server securing it, and not everything's 100%. But encryption is a good tool for that, and there's many tools to doing that. But maybe I'll take some questions. I'm trying to abbreviate myself and keep it down. But what questions are out there on this topic?
What do you think of Hushmail?
Hushmail is okay. It's based out of Vancouver. I would not use it because I've talked to people that they've been subpoenaed and they've given information. I'll paraphrase. That's basically the bottom line of it. Vancouver is United States de facto friendly, but they don't like to raise a lot of waves. But there has been episodes in the past where they have gotten subpoenas and they have provided information. Now, it was maybe encrypted, but they provided it without question. And I guess I'll leave it at that. So that's just personally for me what I've heard and found and talked with some people that have it.
Okay, Brad. Chris
Yep.
here, Las Vegas again. Don't mean to be a pain.
No problem.
We have certainly been aware, and Tor was one you mentioned already, so we'll dismiss that one. But There's Unseen that's being promoted out there. There was also Start Page was supposed to be starting a secure email service, although their affiliation with Google and other aspects that are CIA controlled lends some suspicion to it. And we know that there are many Trojans that pose as secure services. It may be actual data mines functioning in the background to provide the pretense of security of communications. And if you can maybe address that, it would be helpful. And I have one more question about the data center for you.
Sure. Well, I think it's multi-layered as far as the aspect of security. An example would be you can actually use Gmail securely, where you actually have every message on your Gmail account encrypted. And the only way to read it is to decrypt it. And so any email server, you can apply that. It's a little more work because it's not as easy of use as just clicking on an email and reading it. You got to click on the email and decrypt it and then read it. And so it's an extra step that we're not used to. But companies like StartMail, which they actually were going to, initially they were going to launch this past summer. And I think the jurisdiction aspect came into play after a couple other sites were taken down or forced to be taken down because they were in the United States jurisdiction. They're going to be based out of, not in the United States, their servers, based on the legal aspects of jurisdiction there. There's a couple people that are in the crypto world that are involved with StartMail, which is StartPage is a search engine that maintains privacy and is privacy-oriented, and that same group of people wanted to start an email service that was oriented towards privacy too. And that email service is called, and I think you could just go to their website, it's called startmail.org. Or com, possibly. Let me look here. I think it's startmail.com. Yeah, startmail.com.
How about Silent Circle?
Silent Circle was the company I was referring to as far as the owner of that. Well, Edward Snowden had an account with Silent Circle, and the FBI and all these government agencies subpoenaed the Silent Circle, and of course it's under seal, and they can't talk about it, but basically Silent Circle, or the owners of Silent Circle, refused the subpoena, so now they're in court battling it out. But they were forced to shut down because of some legal aspects that say, well, yeah, if we send a subpoena, you have no option but to give us information. They're like, well, wait a minute, that's not lawful. And so they're fighting that in court under seal right now, and so we don't know what's going to happen until a while from now. But Silent Circle right now has suspended email services and has other services such as messaging, instant messaging, and other kind of things that they offer. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big deal because that's Zimmerman, right? The PGP founder, like his next thing, right?
Who's?
Zimmerman.
Yes.
This is like Zimmerman's next big venture, so he's kind of after PGP. So this is kind of his. This is a big litmus test to see where the courts go with on this.
Yes, and it will be interesting. It will be interesting. I think it comes down to that, and StartMail saw this, and I think that's why they're having their servers off, not in United States jurisdiction, based on what's been happening over the last 12 months.
On the question about the Utah data center, Echelon, or the Metatron's Meta Data Center, more specifically, in Bluffdale, Utah, which I've been by several times recently on Redwood Highway, right across from Fort McWilliams, a Army Reserve camp, Camp McWilliams. It appears that they've had some failures on startup. There may be some other conservative union electricians that were involved in the building, like myself. I became a victim of whistleblower obliteration from the union, terminated without cause on contrived pretenses in Las Vegas for calling Harry Reid about the health scam and its constitutionally invidious aspects of the Health Scam Act on several aspects of the Bill of Rights protections that are abrogated by that language in that thing. So it looks like, and they claim that they have ceased going ahead with it, but I don't believe that for a minute. I know it's many levels underground, as well as a large area, I want to say 40 or more acres above ground on top of a mountain. And wondering what you know about that. And I think they probably had some failures based upon some skullduggery or sabotage within.
Well, in my opinion, and what he was referring to as far as the failures is that I think it was maybe about a month and a half ago, they were just about getting ready to fire up the engines, and all of a sudden all the transformers blew up, and they had big fires, different electrical issues all over the building. It's hard to say whether it could be sabotage or incompetence, which we've seen with other things, that it's easily possible that they're totally incompetent in launching something like this. But I think what I want to reference everybody to so they can research more on this facility, at least from the public presentation of this facility, and actually there's a lot of revealing things even in that. There's a website that comprehensively talks about this site, and it's called nsa.gov1.info/Utah-data-center. So it's nsa.gov1.info/Utah-data-center. And there's a bunch of information there that I am sure you'll find very interesting. But
and
yes,
for those that didn't get it, you want to send it to me in an email or a text, and then I'll send it out to everybody.
Right now. Sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll leave it at that. That site does break down how they collect the data and how they share the data. So it'll be very interesting, I'm sure, what you'll find there. And it has pictures of the facility and detail and different things like that. But just a point on the data collection. Using encryption, if you're using encryption, that encryption could be stored on NSA servers, but it's going to take a while for them to decrypt it. Does it mean that they can never decrypt it? No. Maybe 10, 20 years from now when they have machines that can, they can. But now they can't. The capability of decrypting at the level of encryption that's currently available is very difficult. Can it be done? Yes, but the resources to focus on one email to decrypt, it's not viable to do that with millions of emails unless there's a high-value target that needs a decryption. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and Randy, I'll email you this link.
Okay.
Maybe I got some bad information, and maybe it was just rumor, but I thought Snowden put out there that the NSA pretty much has their way with any encryption, that they can slice through encryption like hot knife through warm butter right now. Is that wrong?
Yes, it's true, and it's not true. The NSA actually recommends encryption protocols for the government to use to secure data. The United States Corporation, they recommend the protocols, but at the same time, they have influential hand in how the code of the encryption is created. But there's different types of encryption out there, some that are controlled by them and some that are not. This last recommendation by the NSA and several other intelligence agencies had a specific flaw in the random number generator that's involved in the code. And they actually recommended something that was less than before. And people found that very interesting and raised flags, especially all that was happening at the same time. And so Edward Snowden says some of the encryption protocols are, NSA can decrypt them easily. Some encryption codes or encryption is already accessible because maybe the owner, let's say Google was encrypting everything, but they handed the key to the encryption to NSA, then although your information is encrypted, the owner of the encryption that's controlling all the encryption gave the key to the NSA, so now they can decrypt everything. That's why it's so important that the encryption that you have is controlled by you and not a third party. And typically the simplest way to do that, let's say, for example, countermail.com, they encrypt your entire email account with your own password. If you lose your password, your data is gone because you can't access it. The same goes for Bitcoin wallets and other things that are out there that are encryption-oriented. But Edward Snowden has made recent comments that encryption is one of the last ways to maintain privacy because they don't have complete access or control of all the encryptions or encryption protocols. Anything else?
Well, if you'll let me pose one more question to you. You were speaking about your group in Arizona that's bringing the case against the Northern Arizona judges, and that has quite a bit of interest, I'm sure, on this call. As most of us know, these corrupt black-robe terrorists all need to be in prison for violating people's rights habitually. And I have a pretty strong 42 case against a group of them down there if I choose to pro se execute it myself under the 14th Amendment bounty hunter clauses and the Private Attorney General's Act. And so we are certainly interested in how that's progressing, if you can share some of that with the listeners.
Well, with respect to the people that are involved with it, I kind of share with Randy because I was like, hey, this is real exciting, but I was like, I can't really go in detail yet until I get permission to, because it's a very comprehensive thing that they're working on. But it is exciting.
Is this possibly related to the common law grand jury reimplementation?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, it isn't. Not at all. Actually, it's just a group of individuals doing this just on the side. It's not related to any movement or anything. It's just related to them having enough, like you just stated, and doing something about it now. So,
well,
but you know what? I will have a conversation with them, and the reason why I don't want to say anything yet, because obviously I don't have permission to, but they're sharing the information with other third parties because at some point their case might be sealed and they won't be able to share anything.
Yeah, that's typically what it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They always put a lid on things they don't want to get out to the people because they're too troubling, and that's what they did with my case. They shut down the public exposure of it. If you like, I think Randy's going to send you my contact information, and if I can give them any assistance with my little bit of information, I'm glad to help out. But I do have a little bit of knowledge.
Well, I'm sure offline we could talk more and maybe hook you guys up.
All right.
There's people that are standing up and doing stuff. There's a lot of people doing things that, in conversations. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things happening. So there's things happening out there, and people are standing up. I love it. But maybe at some point in the future, I'll talk with Randy, and maybe we can have a more comprehensive discussion on that case or cases.
Do you want to just tell any little thing?
I can't. I don't want to, I don't want to disrespect them and not ask without. I didn't know I was going to talk about it tonight.
No, I'm pushing you. Trust me.
Yeah, no, all I say is I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, I can tell you they've recently had a prosecutor go to jail in Texas for holding back exculpatory mitigating circumstances out of a case and sending somebody to prison and violating their rights and unlawful incarceration. Also, there was a judge, I think it was the same, I want to say something like Chiacola or something like that in Lucerne County, Pennsylvania, in the Child Protective Services child kidnapping scam that was redirecting to a private prison that he had interest in, and he wound up doing some federal prison time for his abuse of his black robe terrorist judicial robes.
Crazy. Not shocked, but it's just crazy to hear that.
There's a lot of people standing. Do you know anything about the common law courts, Brad? Are you a part of anything? Is there anything
I'm
going on?
I'm not a part of it. I know about it. I know one thing: we need them. They have all these administrative courts. We need to have common law courts And I mean, there's some people that are able to do that within administrative court and making it happen. Right now, obviously, with all these attorneys, I was just talking to somebody today. I don't remember who it was, but I was just talking. They were talking about that they have some family that are attorneys, and one cousin that's a paralegal, and he's talking to the paralegal relative, and she says that she's trying to find a job. He says, well, you're a paralegal. Why don't you go to some law firm? She says, I can't find a job because all the attorneys are doing the paralegal work now. That all the work that paralegals used to do, now attorneys are doing because there's not enough employment or enough work for all the attorneys that are out there. I thought that was an interesting kind of thing. Either there's oversaturation or there's not a lot of things going on. I don't know.
Are you aware of nationallibertyalliance.org that are forming some of these common law juries?
Yes, I've heard of it, yes.
Okay.
I think it's a great thing. I'm not involved myself. I'm definitely supportive of it, but I'm not involved in any of those type of projects.
I am.
Yeah, good.
Who is that?
Hi, my name is Jeff Ball.
Outstanding. Someone's got some kids in the background. I'm not sure where it's coming from. 605. I'm going to have to mute you. All right, we're going to mute 605. I apologize, 605, but it was too much noise. Jeff, did you want to give us like 1 minute on that, and then we'll go back to Brad?
National Liberty Alliance, we're in a process of reestablishing the People's Common Law Grand Jury all across the nation. Right now, I think we're in 50 or 48 states, I think. So there's a fellow named John Darash and Gerard Dupree, and they're the guys that's heading it up in New York. I myself I'm in Washington State.
Excellent. The thing that's great about National National Liberty Alliance?
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you can go to the website and sign up as a jurist, and if the grand jury gets set up in your location or nearby, they can actually call you up if you're on the list, and you can go help set somebody free if they deserve it, which most of the cases today that are in the courts where they're making all the revenue do deserve to go free. They're victimless crimes.
Yep.
So.
We don't really, National Liberty Alliance, we don't really have that kind of organization quite yet. But there are individuals, including myself, who are looking forward to a time that we can have that effect on the local community. The problem is right now the corruption is so much that even it's so dangerous for even those of us who know the common law to go in alone. So when the grand juries are formed and there's the more of us out there, it'll give us some eyeballs to put on every situation that arises. So that will create a safer place for the private attorney generals to go in and do what they have to do.
Can you help me? Is the website for this group nationallibertyalliance.org?
Yes.
Okay.
And we did have John Darash on, it seems like about 2 weeks or so ago. He was very good.
Okay.
Yes, he is.
Exciting.
I've been
Jeff may have some updates on how their prosecution of those criminal black robe terrorists in New York are going in the particular councils they were prosecuting them in and serving them with writs of quo warranto and other criminal charges.
Yes. Yes. I haven't seen anything, no update yet on the after the Quanto, but I think the last show that just happened was Monday night, and I actually I've been going to National Liberty Alliance website every day looking for this last Monday's show because John Darash is really getting his groove on. I mean, his delivery is so well, and he covers a lot of material very quickly. But all the shows are there except for this last one, and I really think that if you have the time, go to the website. On the left-hand side, you can click on something called Juris Orientation. There's about 6 videos there, but if you cover those videos, when you get done with those, you will have learned a lot, and you'll know exactly what the National Liberty Alliance is about. So,
Jeff, what was your last name?
My last name's Ball.
Okay.
You and I spoke, I believe.
I'm Ted Visner. We just hooked up on Facebook.
That's right.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We came by the way of Mr. Mike's school, I think.
Good. I hope you guys are both on 42 Action on Facebook as well. Make sure you like that page. And thank you, Jeff. I'm going to jump back to Brad because I know he's not going to stick with us too long. Just a quick question on gold and silver. What's your thoughts on those? Are they being, especially silver, is it being held back right now, or what's going on?
Well, I'm not. My forte isn't in those, but I know that they're manipulated. Those both the gold and that the whole market, all those markets as far as metals, are manipulated at this point, and so and basically that's with paper certificates of the equivalent or non-equivalent, and so Chase is a good example of what they're doing with silver and gold. But yeah, they're manipulated. There's always going to be a correction at some point in the future, so we'll see what happens. I think it's still a good idea to have silver and gold, only because that's something physical you can have and trade if things get really bad. But I think a mixture of many things, silver, gold, and Bitcoin, I think would be a good mix. Maybe Litecoin, as was referenced earlier, which is another virtual currency that's equivalent to silver. Gold being, Bitcoin being gold, and Litecoin being silver. Maybe those 4 would be good things to invest in, or at least consider holding investment in.
Do you have an opinion on the dinar, and do you want to comment on that?
Yeah.
Okay. If you'd like to share it, we'd love to hear it.
Well, my opinion on dinar is, well, I don't know. I think since I actually even heard about dinar initially, which is like 6 years ago, it was revaluing tomorrow. And it's always revaluing tomorrow.
I heard it today that it was tonight. Okay.
So that's the typical story. I don't think it's ever going to revalue. When you look at all the dinar that's out there, it doesn't make sense to me mathematically that if it revalues at what people expect, that Iraq is, if that's the dinar you're focusing in on, it would benefit. I just don't. It doesn't add up to me. There are other projects that use dinar for a means of exchange, but that doesn't have to. It could have been apples, and those maybe are more realistic than actually waiting for revalue. I'm sure everybody on this call has heard that the revalue is coming tomorrow, and it's always in a different way or different means of. I think recently it was okay. There's a conference call you could sign up. Blah, 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 for an account, or I don't know. I just don't think it will ever, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. That's all my comment on dinar.
Well, I know last year Thanksgiving, it was going to be a Thanksgiving to remember, and then that came and went. And then, of course, we're all grateful for Thanksgiving, but then it was going to be a Christmas to remember. And that came and went. And
now it's a year to remember. No, but yeah, the exchange project. I'm not in. I don't know all the inside pieces of it. But I believe that more than a revalue.
Okay.
But the exchange, and there's other types of projects like that, with a dinar exchange project or things like that are out there. That's more realistic than a revalue, is all I have to say. And I just focus more on the mathematical aspect of why, a revalue wouldn't be good for Iraq. But anyway, that's just my opinion, and I'm not an expert, and I kind of focus on other things, like a Bitcoin that potentially could be $10,000 in a year.
Did you want to mention anything about bonds or anything like that on the Social Security or the birth certificate?
Well, there's always been the, I guess, Patriot group kind of thing about that there's a birth certificate and it's a bond and it's monetized. And in my opinion and what I've researched, that is true. But I've seen the facts. It's hard to share them on a call because you have to see the documents and see all the different things. But it is monetized, and there is something there that is real. And I do believe that at one point I thought it was just a bunch of hooey and theory and patriot myth. But that actually is true in my eyes. There's other type of bonds that are monetized that are interesting that the states do at the state side. That's a whole call. That's a 4-hour call. Randy.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. I will say, for the first time, I'm poking the eye of the bear, not directly, but working with somebody on someone else's case and closely following along. And so we have just used those numbers, and overpaid a ticket by a couple $1,000s. So it's going to be interesting, and as that unfolds, again, like your case that's in northern Arizona that you don't want to really touch on yet, and the reason that we don't want to touch on these just ahead of time is because you never know who's listening on the call, and you don't want them to get the answer ahead of time, just like John Darash didn't want to say what their next step was. Once we've done the steps and then it actually worked, then we can talk all about it. So
because there's so many things that people say, oh, well, this is what you do to do this and that, but there's no fact behind it, and I don't like putting out stuff out there that that I haven't seen fully work or fully come to its final conclusion. But I will tell you that it's exciting so far.
I've worked so far. Okay.
I'll leave that with you.
Chris, or anybody else, do you have any questions for Brad? And Brad, if there's anything else you want to talk about, I'd love to have you, throw it out there.
I don't know. Let's see if there's other questions.
Well, I would observe that Brad is a perfect match for our call. Hopefully he'll check in frequently and share with us, and we can share with him, and we can all mutually learn, educate, and share with one another.
That's right. And Brad, Chris, what is your former position, or maybe it's a current position?
Well, I was the Chief Justice for the Common Law Nevada State Supreme Court with the Republic here. Before I was pushed out of my position by Mark Gardner, an agent provocateur. So
there's a lot of drama that happened into that. I have a whole lot of stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I wanted to make sure you guys knew who each other was. We will have Brad back as long as he can.
I'll come on. We can come on another call, and I could talk about some other topic, and we can have an open discussion. I'm always up for that. There's always, everybody has, I'm not claiming to know everything, and I'm always open to new information too. And I think that's what's so valuable about these type of calls is that everybody's sharing some. And I think that's really cool, and we're helping each other. So it's great.
That's great. Brad and I found out that we had a common friend, which do you remember who it is, Brad?
Well, we have a common thing.
A common friend, common someone that we know, Sheldon with 4409.
Yeah.
So I I don't know if you guys have looked at that, his website. Do you know his website offhand?
I think it's just youtube.com/4409.
Okay, so YouTube.
But yeah, I could talk about that real quick.
Yes, me too.
Talk about what he does. Let me see. I want to double check his URL before.
While you're double checking, Brad, here's a pretty hot breaking news item. The Attorney General for Utah is resigning. There have been some pretty spurious insinuations about his election campaign and several other things, but I can tell you this is one of the most corrupt states that I know of. I'm fighting, trying to protect rights, and they finally were able to steal the flipping not even 2-month-old baby out of mama's arms this last week in this criminal Kabbalistic court on a case founded on shifting sands, built of frivolously stacked cards and nothing but lies fabricated as truths by the lying Assistant State Attorney General Barbara McCleary and her co-prosecutor, Judge Zucata Bazell, the witch from hell.
Wow. You know what? Typically, I would say I think you might be over-exaggerating. but you probably are right on and probably under-exaggerating.
Yeah, Chris. Nevada corrupt? I'm shocked.
Well, it was Utah in this case, but Nevada too. You know, they're all those states in the same way. They're all corruptocrats or kleptocratic governments governed by criminals specifically, and they just masquerade as public servants and steal the monies and bleed the people dry.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know where you are in Utah, but there's some maybe I guess it's a suburb of Salt Lake, Wallsburg, Utah. I think just yesterday they forgot to have an election for the mayor.
Oh, yes, I saw that. I'm actually not in Utah. I merely am providing assistance to counsel and disabilities and research and so on and so forth, trying to attain some justice for an abused family by the Department of Child Protective Services there. But the same thing goes on in every state. They're basically converting children to cash cows to provide income for the state and seizing them with fabricated charges against the parents that have no substance. In fact, all our evidence to support them, but since they got an administrative agency's purported license to violate the rights of the people, most people don't know how to hold them accountable, and we're trying to work on that.
Well, you know, just a comment on that. My last when I worked for the state of Arizona way back in the day, and I worked next to CPS, and so I got to see these people and what they do, and I was just like very surprised. I thought it was very interesting that the building that they have CPS in is the same building that they actually hand out the death certificates and birth certificates. It's all in one building. I thought that was real interesting how that was collaborated. But that Utah is just to add to the corruption or incompetence. There's a city out there, and I think it's Wallsburg, Utah, that they're supposed to have an election for a mayor and a city councilman. They forgot to have the election, so they said, you know what? Since we forgot it, we'll just wait another 2 years and try it again.
I think they did 2 years in a row, or two election cycles in a row. They
did it two times in a row. This is the third time. So, I mean, how corrupt is that?
That's incredible. I've never heard of such a thing.
It's insane. Anyway,
does anybody have any final questions for Brad before he takes off? All right, we're good. Brad, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that information. And anything you want to talk about, you always have an open door here. So let us know what's going on. Keep us updated on that case that we can't talk about.
Okay. All right. It's a pleasure. And
also Sheldon, 4409, if he wants to reach out to him.
Yeah, I'll talk with him and see if we can get him on. And real quick, Sheldon is an activist out here in the Phoenix area. He does some really, really awesome things, and he captures it all on video, a lot of the things he does, and has some really interesting insight and discussion even on a YouTube video about all these de facto laws and different things that he's experienced here in a very simple way. He has a website. It's just on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel. It's called if you want to check it out, it's youtube.com/RT as in Paul 4409. And there's a bunch of videos, and they're actually pretty entertaining. Some of the things he does and confronts things. Anyway, it was great talking with you guys, and yeah, we'll have to do this again.
All right, sounds good. Have a great night.
Right.
Tell your family
Right.
thanks for letting us borrow you.
All right, thanks. All right, bye-bye. Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Brad.
Bye.
If anybody wants to see some of Sheldon's videos, he's got Formula 4409 as well, I believe, as one of his websites. And he does do the Border Patrol shops, and he dubs in some good music. And my favorite, and I've probably watched it about 25 times, and it was actually one of the favorites of the homeschool kids that I taught the Constitution course over the summer. And it was his Border Patrol check where he flips it on the Border Patrol guy, and he says, "Where are you going today? Where you been? Where you headed to?" And he finally gets waved through. And also the Fruit Nazi videos, which there's like parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, I believe. That took up almost an entire Constitution class, and the kids loved it. They were glued to my computer as we played those videos. So he is a hero of mine, and so hopefully we'll get him on the show, on our talks here in one of the upcoming weeks. I think you guys will enjoy him, and he's got a really good story if he's willing to share it. Dave, are you on the line? Because if you are, I wanted you to share your new website.
I'm here.
Do you want to go ahead and, for those that haven't heard, just give us a brief, synopsis of what's going on, and then over the last couple of weeks you give a really long website. If you want to give the new one, it would be great.
Yeah, I'm pretty much speechless on what's going on, and I've gone to all the authorities who's refused to file charges with the criminal elements of an illegal judge, a forged oath of office, of the Secretary of State admitting they committed fraud, of the DA admitting the fraud was committed on the court. It just goes on and on and on. What I decided to do, because no one's doing anything, is I want to get my story out there to all the news agencies know, ABC, and local here in Denver. I'll say Denver so they know. Local stations here with ABC News, CBS News, and Fox News all have my story. Every one of them has all the evidence. No one's followed up with me to break a story of all the crimes committed. But they'll put on TV some guy, imposter dressed up as a cop, but when I have an imposter of a judge who denies me due process, we have a problem. There's a forged oath of office. I put up a website out there just this week. I'm starting to get my evidence out there. It's called SpousalDiscriminationCoverup.com. Make it very easy. SpousalDiscriminationCoverup.com. That's my website. All my evidence is going up there. Hopefully, it goes around to all the patriots. Hopefully, what I'm hoping and what happens is some watchdog news investigator gets a hold of that, sees all the evidence, and wants to do an interview on me and my wife, and then go start questioning these authorities on why are they breaking the law. And then, secondly, I open some hotshot attorney that can see this thing for what it really is, that he can turn around and put his eyeballs on, knowing he can retire if this goes through a process of law that I would need guidance on. And close this thing and get it the hell out of my life. It's taken up 10 years of my life.
You might possibly send some of those to CopWatch and JudicialWatch.com.
Could you say that again, Chris?
One called JudicialWatch.com. They watch for corrupt judges, and they post information on them around the country, videos or print, text, or allegations of what their criminalities and how they're abusing the people are. CopWatch is another one. I think they do judges and cops on that one.
Hey, Dave?
Yep.
My name's Jeff Ball. I run a website. It's called the Private Attorney General's Group.
Private Attorneys
It's the Private Attorneys General's Group. And it's at The web address is www.
Yep.
THEZ.
I'm sorry, could you say those letters, each letter, so that I can hear it?
It's www.THE.
Tom Henry Edward?
Yep, Tom Henry Edward, PAGG.
Paul Apple George.
Yeah, .org.
.org. And your name again, please?
My name's Jeff Ball.
Okay, that's
BALL is the last name.
Are you on Facebook or whatnot?
You know, I really hated social gatherings like that, but I was recently talked into starting one. So, yeah, if you go on Facebook and search out the Private Attorney General's group, you should be able to find me.
Okay, that's awesome. And Randy has all my information. Randy knows the story inside and out, and Randy's been a true patriot in my corner, knowing all this corruption that's going on. This just insane, totally insane of every official in this state has done what they've done, and then the FBI turns around and puts my picture on a federal case that they charge a guy with forging a government seal, that the jury turned around and found him guilty here back in September. Paul Sellers, you can go to the FBI website, look up Paul Sellers. The charge was under Title 18, Section 505, forging a government seal. Yet the FBI had my evidence for 9.5 months of a forged government seal by government officials, and they turn around and hand me my evidence back at the courthouse that I went to, and says there's nothing they can do. Totally ludicrous. Hypocrisy at its most. And the website I have, my son's been in the service for 18 years. He paid a tribute to veterans. You want to go on there and read what he says. This is what inspired me to put this out there, because these veterans, these people in service protecting our liberties abroad, with our liberties being stolen right here at home.
Say, Jeff, Chris in Las Vegas. I'm also a private attorney general, and I think I may have communicated with your group sometime back, probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half. But I'm certainly interested in sharing information and education and knowledge with you guys. And if Randy would like, she can certainly send my contact information to you, too. I know some of us are a little sensitive about sharing our contact information on phones, but there could be trolls amongst us.
Right. Well, you guys can go to the website, www.thepagg.org, and there's a area there that you can sign up and send your email to me, and then we can connect that way. I'll go ahead and give out my email address if you guys want to just go ahead and hit me up that way.
That'd be great.
It's recuse, RECUSE, and then the letter U, @gmail.com.
Awesome.
And hit me up, because I'm working with some other people, and we know about all this corruption, and what we've decided to do, or at least try, is to go after the bonds that they have. All public officials have bonds. Of course, they've gotten to an area to where they want to hide them now. Of course, that's okay. If they want to hide them, then we can bring them up on charges of obstructing justice. What that is. Once we find the surety holders who has the bonds, I believe we have that worked out too. But once we find the surety holder is a company that insures them, just like your car or a home. And that's what a bond is. It's just an insurance policy.
Aren't they frequently hidden in risk management or other insurance type guises or covers?
Well, it's an insurance company, and they're sureties. So, a person like a public servant has to carry an insurance policy for if they go out and do something wrong and cause injury, then they have a way to pay for it. So it's kind of like an insurance policy for your car. There's not a lot of difference.
Here in Nevada, they try to claim a blanket security bond that they all operate under, as opposed to having individual security bonds, although the judges themselves and perhaps some of the court officers may have their own individual security bonds for their performance to protect them from the criminal.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about that blanket coverage. It's unlawful.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, they can't do that because the purpose of having the damn policy anyway is to keep those individuals from wanting and caring about going out and causing harm to people. So if you have a blanket, if your company is doing a blanket thing and they're paying for it, then your public officials, why should they care about hurting anybody? They're covered.
There are some that advocate making professional association complaints to the bar or to the judicial councils of the states, alleging that a low number, maybe 2 to 3 complaints are enough for the sureties to cancel the coverage for those individuals, which they must have in order to fill those perfunctory positions, and thereby they are no longer able to serve or to prosecute, or execute.
That is the way I understand it is that once there's a complaint put in on a public servant, that public servant does not come to work the next day. Okay, and let me tell you something about something that will get you that bond, I believe, quickly. It at least causes a lot of problems for the public servants that's hassling you. Some of you on the call may know about it. It's called the Public Servant Questionnaire, and it's a Title V requirement. I think it's Title 522, where when you as the citizen, or I don't like using the word citizen, but let's say you as the people require information from your public servant, they're entitled to give it to you, and that's in Title V, I think, subsection 522 or something like that. But anyway, here's the deal: when you ask for the information and the public servant refuses to give you information, then that's obstruction of justice again. So on the public service questionnaire, like if you were to be pulled by, let's say you're driving along and you're pulled over, you have one of those in your car, you can hand that, stuff that in the police officer's hand, and he's required to give you that information.
Absolutely. There's also the Public Duty Act. There's also the Foreign Agents Registration Act, because they really are all private foreign agents for private profits masquerading as public servants. And when you know that, all barred licensed attorneys, because of their foreign barred oaths to higher obligations in the mere public service that they're supposed to perform, i.e. the bar as officers of the court and not to their mere money-paying clients, are required to be registered in compliance with the Foreign Agents Registration Act requirements, or it's a violation. And I think there are fines that we can also access, like you would a Fair Debt Collection Practices Act or Federal Telephone Call Protection Act violation fine that you can individually access for those violations.
Right. And see, the problem that the public service questionnaire for the public servant is once they deny you and they refuse to give you that information, now you have a reason to fill out your affidavit and send it in to them. And then after 30 days, if your affidavit's not rebutted, it becomes truth and law. Okay, now you take that and you file your court case against them. And that's the beauty of that one. Okay. So again, that pulls you back into the corruption, but here's the deal. A few of us are trying to work on something that once that process has happened, that the shareholders of of the bonding of the public official, we think that they need to be informed, and they need to be informed publicly on the nefarious people that they're insuring. Now, we're hoping that when we do something like this, that we may be able to shame the shareholders in dropping their bonds if they haven't already. Now, if the bonding company, the surety, want to do that, then we're going to contact the shareholders on an individual basis. And we're just going to keep climbing the ladder that way in hopes that eventually somebody will realize that, hey, we're getting smeared all over the place just because a deputy in Crossville, wants to be a Superman and talk down to parents and show off like they did the other day.
Here's a contemplation for you, Jeff, that I might throw at you and see what you think. It seems to me that since the county commission czars and the boards of supervisors, or whatever they term themselves as these administrative entities for the counties and cities, are usurpating the rights of the sheriff to be the people's qualified elected officio to protect their interest by the controlling language that is subject to, that enters into every one of these employment clauses and job descriptions that they put out. So I contemplate that the boards of supervisors or administrators, whatever their capacity, job, function, title is, would be the proper parties to serve whenever the sheriff or his underlings have acted outside scope, sphere, and color of law, and therefore made themselves subject to violations of Title 42 and Title 18 criminal charges for the criminalities they purport and carry out against the people, not to mention their treason against the United States and their being in takeover of the government.
Well, I think that's correct. One of the little things that I try to remember, and it's pretty basic and it's pretty easy, is and I think other people's. I think Winston Strout had a 4 tables or corners, but here's my table, and if it doesn't have all the legs on it, then it doesn't fly. One of them, of course, is an injured party. If you don't have an injured party, then you don't have a case. Number 2, if the other guys don't have jurisdiction and you don't give it, then there's another table missing. Number 3 is consent, and this is the one that most of us forget to do if we decide that we want to go to court. Now, the 4th one is locking down presumption, because the administrator, he's going to presume things about you. And if you don't tell him that he's not allowed to, and you don't tell him that you don't consent, then he's going to presume that you're okay with a contract that's going down. Okay?
That's the rebuttable presumption.
Yes. So those 4 things are very important to cover and get very familiar with when you're figuring out who you are in relationship to the court. I'm sovereign, and I can be sovereign anywhere I want to. Basically, I consider myself a man of many hats, and I can wear any hat I want to. If I want to wear a Justice of the Peace hat one day, I will. I'm sovereign. I can do any damn thing I want. If I want to be a private attorney general one day, then that's what I do that day. And
don't discount your position. I just merely would suggest that sometimes we have to quantify or qualify what our definition and how we define that term, and specifically make sure that the Sovereign Poverty Liars Center criminal conspiracy to color everybody as terrorist sovereign citizens doesn't apply to us, because we know the true meaning of the word sovereign as self-reign or control, and accept responsibility for our own actions when we rule as sovereigns without subjects.
Yeah, you can turn it around. If you want to go on like a vocal contract, you can say, well, if you say one more word to me, then you agree to the terms and conditions, and then you can spill into your terms and conditions, and then stop and look at him. The next thing he says, then he's agreed to your contract and the terms and conditions that you just spelled out. So you can do that on the side of the road or wherever you want to do. You know, a voice contract is a contract just as much as a written contract. So, you know, once you get them in the contract and they agree to your terms and conditions that you spelled out, then, you know, you can go into something and say, hey, you know, I'm a private attorney general or I'm a sovereign, and you work for me. And you know, here's the public servant questionnaire. I'm going to need you to fill it out, and then we can go further.
Brad Tluczek, who also operates in the private attorney general realm fairly strongly, recently put out a new charging instrument against some of the officios in D.C. that has some pretty strong legs and some interesting, we'll call them novel theories of application, where he's declaring the judge that he must be a live, living, breathing entity or spirit in order to sit over the court, and if he does, then he accepts his responsibility to his oath of affirmation to office and the obligatory duties to perform and support, defend, and hold up the Constitution, protections for the people, and thereby holds them accountable, and if they don't, then they're acting outside scope sphere and abandoning their judicial rogue positions and stepping down from the bench. But it was a really interesting document. It was about a 35-pager, but it's certainly worth a look for those of us who are seeking to enact the remedies that are provided by the people, for the people, to take up the guardian, protect, serve, defend, and vindicate the rights of the people who are being abused by these terrorists masquerading as public servants.
Yeah. See, you're exactly right, and that what Rod Class just did there was he created his own terms and conditions and said, "Here you go. Here's my terms and conditions, and if you're gonna continue with me, then this is the contract, and if you continue with me, you're agreeing to it."
The fellow that I ran across originally on the private attorney general capacity was Paul Andrew Mitchell out of Arizona, and he has some really great. That's let's see, SupremeLaw.org is his site, and he has some really great intel on his site. He has a book called Secrets of Cracking the Code of the IRS, not to be confused with the other fellow that does it. But he's a pretty sharp cookie down there, and there are a lot of people who are learning much more than these barred, licensed, esquired attorneys, because we're actually studying law, fact, and evidence, and the foundational law of the land, the Creator's natural common law, and trying to hold these terrorists accountable who have tried to usurpate the law of the land and replace it with their legal, sleazy, Pharisee, Talmudic legal schemes, replacing the law of the land.
Well, there's the other few key things that tricks that you got to learn. They're not very hard either. I mean, just simple things like if I say to you the U.S. code is not for citizens, it's for public servants, then you should know what I'm saying. You know, the U.S. code is not for us. It's
Absolutely
for them, and they like to forget that and make you think it's for you. Well, that's them using the presumption wand that you failed to take away from them. You know, I like to say something along the lines of, you know, if you're not allowed to use presumption anymore. Anybody in here is not allowed to presume anything about me anymore. It's that simple, you know.
That's good. Hey, we have another gentleman on the call tonight, Ted, and I don't know if you're muted, Ted. Let me look here real quick. No, you're not. Your line is open. Do you want to tell the folks about your Facebook page and the organization that you're involved with?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
Is that Ted Visner? I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right.
Yes.
Yeah,
hi, guys.
I saw that.
Wow, I'm having a lot of fun listening to you guys. I'm taking notes. I got sticky pages all over my desk.
That's what my desk looks like every day. So welcome to what our lives have all become.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I thanks for the introduction. Just real quick, I started a Facebook page to gather support for Constitution enforcement officers to do what Jeff mentioned earlier, putting together groups to go into courtrooms to monitor courtroom proceedings and record whenever available, and to start standing up for the Constitution openly and support folks that are in court and going through some trying times, and make sure that the courts are responding the way they should be, and if they're not, hold them accountable for that. Yeah. So if
here's kind of a tactic that I've learned recently, and we do quite a lot of court attending, watching, and witnessing to document the crimes that go on and take copious notes and so on and so forth. I have a little trouble hearing, getting older as I am. I wear a little audio enhancer, hearing aid, if you will. It has a little blue light that lights up on it when the battery is good, and earphones I plug in. And I'm always getting quizzed by the marshals or the judge or the prosecution about what it is. Am I recording it? No, this is a hearing aid. I said, under the American Disabilities Act, under the Accommodations Clause, I am you're obligated to provide me the accommodation of allowing me to wear my hearing enhancement because I'm hearing impaired. Well, all you got to do is allege it, and they have to prove otherwise. And so what I find is they focus on me because it's got that little blue light they can see, and my earphones they can see, and so they pinpoint on me and attack me, and they don't pay attention to my mate that has the recorder in one of their pockets.
That sounds like you need to cover that light up.
or my granddaughter that's using her iPad to record.
Well, hey guys, I just want to say one more thing before I take off. A lot of you guys think that you have to appear in court. You do not. You can appear by Skype. You need to let them know at least 4 or 5 days before your court date. But if you feel that you have to go in, just understand this: when you walk in there, you're offering your body as surety, and they'll surely take you up on the offer sometime. So,
Ted, did you want to give up the link to that Facebook page that you started?
Yeah, it's just Constitution Enforcement Officer at Facebook.
And officers is plural. It's got an S on the end then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I posted a link and liked your site at 42 Action.
Excellent. Spread it around. Jeff, did you have anything else you want to say? You've contributed some good stuff here.
I was trying to go through my head and figure out if there was something. I didn't know I'd be talking so much when I came on, so I'm not really prepared. But I just want to say that there's a few of us, and we're working on some things because we realize that the corruption's so bad. So if you guys are interested in knowing more about that, just go to my website and hook up with me. And I gave out my email account out there, and you can contact me that way. And I'm pretty open. I answer the phone and I talk to people. So.
All right, outstanding.
Hello.
Yes.
Let me speak one thing. People have to understand that the state courts, that basically they are declaring that is under judicial power. Because every state has a constitution, and they are declaring that it is a judicial power, which is like Article 3 court on the national constitution. So if they are declaring that it is our judicial power court, then you have a right to demand common law, okay? Because every constitution shall be a parallel to the national constitution. So you have to read your state constitution, and I'm pretty sure there shall be a statement saying that the court of blah, blah, blah shall be a judicial power. Okay, so it's the same thing as our National Constitution Article 3 court. So if they are claiming that it is a common law court, then you have to demand it.
Well, it's not. Here's the thing about the word demand. I'm just going to hit this real quick. The word require is liked a lot better because it's coming from authority. If you look it up in Black's Law, look at both words. Look up demand and then look up require, and then I think you'll like the word require better. But about it being a common law court, if you go and you show up and you know, I don't like the word per se either, but if you're there representing yourself, what you have to do is you have to open up your common law court and run it in the same instance. So you can have two courts going. The administrator in the black robe can have his court going, and you can have your common law court going at the same time. But you have to go in and start that court when he starts his court.
Yeah, don't you have to file a counterclaim to do it as a plaintiff?
I'm sorry, say again?
I said, don't you have to do it, file a counterclaim and act in the capacity as a plaintiff to do that, right?
Well, me as a sovereign, I can do anything I want.
Actually, there is the case law stating that all the codes and rules and regulations are for the public officers. So why should you follow their court rules?
That's right.
It doesn't apply to them or to you, and you just have to move with the declaration or affidavit, and they have to rebut it. And so the 3 times you file and they do not answer, they're in default.
That's right.
So now you demand. Okay, either you file a writ of a defendant.
You require. You don't demand. You require.
Yeah, basically writ means you are ordering the court. So now you file a writ of something.
Here, let me explain to you real quick about the demand thing. Is that any commoner can demand. Anybody can stand up and yell and say and plea and demand, but only a person of authority requires something.
Right, so writ means you are giving an order to the court. Okay, so now you file a writ. And I was actually talking to John, the ones that running the National Liberty Alliance, and I basically told him that, I learned that I have to move with the writ, and he said, wow, how did you figure that out? And he is actually coming to that conclusion that he has to start moving with a writ. So then, I already filed a writ of a defendant in error, and I'm basically telling the court that, hey, here's an order for the court, and have to drop the case because they have the plaintiff have no ground and never put any evidence that's sworn in by the first-hand knowledge officer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that the state can't be the injured party, and usually they don't have any evidence and no person, nobody standing over it other than attorney. And
yes, so basically I'm saying that, okay, a corporation sue me. Am I a corporation? Because corporation cannot sue a living man and woman, Lander versus Delaware. So basically, is this corporation claiming that the defendant is a corporation, an artificial entity?
Well, let me ask you.
Is there some unknown contract that I ever known? That is that capitalized name, the defendant is a corporation, or is it a living man? Because the case law says the only living man could sue a living man.
Well, that's
basically
that's true.
The plaintiff is a corporation.
Well, here's the thing: the corporations cannot be sovereign. All right, only the man and woman on the land is sovereign. And the sovereign, a man on the land, is one house below the creator. All right? That's where your house is at. And your house, so that means that your house is over everybody else's house. The Vatican's, the City of London, Washington, D.C. So if your house is over them, then you're part of. Well, let's look at it this way. Here's another way to look at it. All right, same thing, same concept. Where does the fourth branch of the government emanate from?
People.
The people, that's right. So the people, they may want to say, hey, you're a citizen, and they'll presume you're a citizen. And sometimes being a citizen is a good thing. But me as a sovereign, I'm a citizen when I want to be. And I'm a citizen, and I'm not a citizen when I want to be. I do what I want to do. I switch my hats whenever I want to. So I'm the people. Okay, and for me, I'm part of the fourth branch of the government, and I created the other three. Now, the other three don't like this. They don't want you to know that concept, but that's how it is.
So it's interesting that I mentioned about that case, Rhonda versus Delaware, and then basically judge says this national association is not a corporation. So then I start searching, okay, association, what is association? Then actually Congress created the national associations are the citizen because it is made out of more than 5 men as association. So all the banks, national association banks, NA is basically a national association is made by a group of men. So now they're considered as a citizen. Okay, but still, citizen is below we the people.
Yeah, they want you. They'll call you citizen. They want you to be a citizen because then you're allowing of a contract that puts you on the bottom. So that's when you have to stand up in the beginning and proclaim your status and standing of who you are. But it's not only about saying who you are; it's about acting the part as well.
Yeah, so you never waive your rights by following their court rules or anything. You have to set the court as your court, a common law court, and you have to tell the court what to do with a writ. So you file a writ of whatever, okay, and basically saying that I am not going to consent to any of the court rules, and here is an affidavit, and the other party have to rebut it. That's it, period. I'm moving in a common law court because you guys said you are judicial power, and you are going to give me a common law court. So I am, inserting my rights, and that's all. Okay, now you have to do your duty because you are public officers, and you did a voluntary oath. And took that position, okay, and you swear that you are going to do that for me, period. So you have to basically remind them that you said you are going to review all the case laws recorded in any other states, any acts that is recorded in any other state. You swear that you are going to do that. You are going to review all the codes and regulations. You are actually bound by it, okay? So you have to remind them.
They'll use it. They'll use the presumption against you if you let it. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Keith.
Yes, I hear you talking about being a citizen. Now, there's 2 types of citizen. There's a citizen of the United States, and there's a citizen of the state, which is de jure. So
I'm a sovereign, so I don't really care about those 2 definitions. I say what citizen is.
Okay.
I didn't mean to be rude there, but I'm just telling you how we need to change our thinking. You see, you come at me and you say, well, this is what. And I tell you, hey, wait a minute, I'm a sovereign, and I don't really care what you say it is. I say what it is. Okay.
Right, but you can be a sovereign citizen of Florida, but you can't be a sovereign citizen of the state of Florida.
You can be a sovereign citizen, period, because sovereign is king and citizen is subject.
That's right. See, they're trying to mix.
No such word exists.
That's right. They're trying to throw the legalese in there and say sovereign citizen. Look, I'm a sovereign, but I can be a citizen sometimes if I want to. All right? or I can be not be a citizen. It's my call. I'm a sovereign. Okay, I haven't agreed to any contract that says that I can only be a citizen when they want me to be. I've never signed anything like that. If I did, though, and they have it, bring it forward so I can see it.
Okay.
So we got to change our thinking. We got to know that we take control. And so
is a vessel, okay, and you use it, okay, and you navigate above the water and the land. And because of the bankruptcy, they created the Admiralty in maritime jurisdiction. So your citizen is the boat. Okay, so now you actually navigate, and if anybody who's trying to be a pirate in the sea and trying to damage you, your vessel, your boat, damaging your boat, now you could actually claim that damage, and basically the citizen means your vessel.
Well, it does, and you know what? I use the term my house because that was the term that was used a long time ago. Before all the shipping went on. But the house is synonymous with the vessel. So
if somebody coming after your house and trying to take your house, now they're actually creating it's called attacking the plundering the vessel. Okay, it's a Title United States Code, Section 1659. Now you could actually go after them and say that's a violation of Title 18. All right, and they are trying to damage your vessel.
Yes.
So we actually, if you read the Constitution, we shall get remedy in Admiralty in maritime jurisdiction because we are actually a sovereign that we went bankrupt. Okay.
Yeah, but you see, you're those two, the maritime and Admiralty, common law is where I operate at, and in my opinion, maritime and Admiralty law is code law. It's statute law. So
no. What happened is
because my law is common law. That's the law that I prefer when I'm dealing with my public servants.
Title 28, Section 1333. Okay, you study that, and it says Admiralty maritime jurisdiction, and with a savings of suitors clause, which means the common law. So you could actually get a common law in Admiralty, and you can bring all the codes for them. So I bring all the codes and regulations, say, look, we're running on the Admiralty, and you put a lien on my house, okay, that's Admiralty. All right, so now you can come in on the Admiralty.
That's what they did, though. That's what they did, though.
Right. So now they did that, but they coming in as equity. Okay. So now you go back and say, hey, this is Admiralty.
No, I go back.
On my house.
I say this is common law from here on out. This is. Yeah. I could even make laws up as I go. That's how bad I am.
I come in as common law. I can claim anything I want. Okay, I can move in Admiralty and maritime jurisdiction on the common law.
Yeah, and you can go anywhere you dang well want.
So I said, hey, I'm in a common law court, and in the maritime and Admiralty jurisdiction, and in the Admiralty, here is the law says, if I give a promissory note, there's no debt.
Yeah, you can come in and this is Joe Smith, and I hereby put the common law court of whatever into session. And just say that right there when you're standing looking at the administrator. And now you've got two courts running at the same time. Your court, which is a common law court, and his court, which is a statute court. And guess whose court oversees the other? The common law court, your court. But see, we're trying to do things, and we don't have our court running. We don't have our court in session. So they're getting away with a lot of things.
So basically what I said in the mortgage case, I said, okay, they're trying to ruin my U.S. vessel. Okay, the vessel. It's my vessel. They came in and trying to damage. They put a lien against my house, and I cannot maneuver. okay, and they're actually damaging my vessel. So I am crippled, okay, and they actually damage your credits and all kinds of things. Now you cannot navigate. All right, this is a crime.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how I got damaged the other day was there was a deputy in Crossville that just wanted to talk down to the parents trying to pick up his child at school, and my blood is still boiling for that one. So since my blood pressure's been up for the last 4 days, I've been damaged. So the Sheriff Burgess Burgett, I think is his name, they're going to get an affidavit of damage informing them that I've been damaged.
Yeah, so in a way, you have a spirit that contains the body, and the body is also a vessel too. And then and if your body is a people, then your house is a vessel. We always have a vessel. And basically the vessel is created because we could freely navigate and go out and contract anytime, and we are not liable. Because
that's right. We can contract without a third-party intervener. That's the law.
And they have to basically take care of everything because we're beneficiaries. And so you can go out and give, promise, and you're not really liable to pay any of those debt because guess what they do? They stamp it, pay to the order of without the.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could talk. You and I could probably talk about that one for
so
quite a while.
Basically, once they stamp it without the recourse, guess what? They have no liability to collect.
Yeah.
So guess what? You are the first seller, and you actually sold it, and you got your house back.
Well, there's no money. There's only security interest.
Exactly. So whenever you give us something in value, you are paying something. So if you gave some kind of contract, or we call it contract, but it's actually a money that you have given to them, so then you gave something in value, so they sell it. If it doesn't have a value, they cannot sell it. Of course, it has a value, right? So it already leaves their hand. And at first, it left your hand because you gave something in value. And then you got the house, you got the car. And we have that unalienable rights that we can go out and just sign your papers, and you can just obtain anything you want. Okay, and they're liable for that. They are liable because what it says, the obligation of the United States is the debt of the United States.
Yeah, well, if you look up Title 12, USC 411, right? It's just a paragraph.
Redeemable for money. So you gave the money, you gave the paper so that they can go redeem.
Yeah, now check.
And you don't have any liability.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what one of the funny things about this particular title here is inside the title it says that the Federal Reserve note is only there for the purpose to be traded amongst the banks. It was never meant to be in the hands of the common man. But if you continue reading that code, at the bottom it tells you something about redeeming for lawful money. Well, there's a dimension there that's a contradictory. All right, it's contradicting itself. If the Federal Reserve notes is only supposed to be traded from within the banks, then how at the bottom is it talking about redeeming them for lawful money? You follow me? Because they're only supposed to be in the hands. It says within the code that they're only supposed to be, the Federal Reserve notes is only supposed to be in the hands of the banks. But at the bottom of the paragraph,
they're the only one who could actually redeem it.
At the bottom of the paragraph, it's telling you how to redeem it. Well, how can you redeem it? Why do you have Federal Reserve notes in your hand if it just told you at the top of the paragraph that the Federal Reserve notes are only supposed to be traded within the banks?
What code is that? If they are saying we actually bound by these codes, then okay. Then I will redeem it. Give me the damn thing, and I'll go redeem it. All right, open the door for me so I can go redeem it. So if we are bound by those codes, then we should be able to redeem the note, right, and get the lawful money.
No, that's exactly right. But go try and do it.
So then they play monopoly, and when they want to collect the debt, then they said you're bound by the codes and regulations, right? It doesn't make sense. Either we are bound by it and we will act like a bank, okay, and we could do whatever we want just like them and sign be, paid to the order without the recourse, and we could sell it and get money and do all kinds of things. But, why they would use these codes and regulations upon you only when they want to collect the money. Mm-hmm. It's a totally involuntary servitude and forced servitude.
Fraud upon fraud.
Exactly.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, you mentioned something earlier that I found very intriguing, and I've tried to do some research on this, but that's this whole concept of the house. I saw a video by Kurt Kallenbach talking about it one time, but how is there a way to say, you know what, I'm establishing the house of me, and is there a process for doing that? I mean, other than I know you're a sovereign and you can just say so, but is there a recommended process to establish that?
You could have any given name you want. You're sovereign. You can create any given name you want, and if you want to make that official and not legal, what you need to do is you have two men testify that, yes, I know this man known by this name. That's it. Okay, and you have three men do a witness signature, and you keep it with you.
That's right. It's better than a notary by having three people.
So either you have two witness, and then notary actually become the republic notary and say, I so and so a one of the people acting as a judicial capacity, that I am taking a sworn and subscribed by this one of the people of this state, okay, testifying of a statement, and I have witnessed the person, the living one of the people signing this this instrument. That's it. Now she is a republic notary. Okay, then that document is nothing to do with the corporate side, because the notary is testifying that she is one of the people of your state.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. Well, look, I'm sorry, I've got to go. I've got chicken to cook. I haven't had dinner yet.
Well, we're glad that you weighed in on the call, and it's been a good discussion.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank Gloria, as usual, for coming in there. It is 10 after 10. It's a good spot to cut it tonight.
Before you end, okay, there's one thing that I want to tell everybody. Title 28, United States Code, Section 132, it says, the United States District Court is the court of record. Okay, now you take this code to federal court and demand the court of record. That's it.
Oh, so give me that code again one more time. The title.
28 United States Code, Section 132.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. It's a court of record. It says United States District Court, upper lowercase. It's court of record. So you file a case over there, and then you move in court of record and give your declaration. Do not give any affidavit. Do a declaration by asseveration, by two men or three men sign the document, okay, and you submit to the court as an evidence.
Okay.
Then you support with whatever the material facts you want to put in, and you swear, make sure that you sworn and subscribe that or any the document that you attach is a true correct copy, that you can testify to the fact that you own this original and you will bring it to the trial. Okay. So basically, you got to sworn in every document that you put it in. Otherwise, it's not facts. Just like their attorneys do, they put all these documents and they never testify. So guess what? Any evidence is void. Period.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does.
All right.
Well, I've had a good time tonight. Thank you all.
All right, everybody.